everybody, and welcome to another episode of Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed radio show. I am your host, Travé Nicole, and I'm so excited for you guys to be listening into the show with me on today. We are here to inspire, to encourage, to inform, to motivate, and to pray for you and with you, and to push you into purpose. This show is called Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed radio show, which means that the open heart, the open mind, the open ears, did I already say the open mouth? And let me add on, the open hands should be just as ready to contribute to the kingdom of God as they are to receive. If you are a new listener, welcome to the show. Our show airs every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time and every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can also catch our video replays every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Well, that is enough about the show. Let's go ahead and get started with the show. Well, before we do that, let's do the recap. Now it's time for the recap. Now it's time for the recap. So, last week we started a series of episodes called Life Hacks. And if you don't know what life hacks are, they are tools, techniques, and strategies that you can use to make your life a little bit easier, whether it's problems with time management that you're having. Maybe you've become a little bit more busy these days, and so you need a different strategy to get some things you do on the daily done quicker, easier, and be more efficient. But obviously here on the show, we're talking about spiritual life hacks. And last week, we introduced life hack number 1, which was to accept the process, accept the fact that there is a process. There's a process to getting where you're going, being who you are supposed to be becoming, to growth and maturity and to healing through the pain that a lot of us have been experiencing. A lot of us have been going through a lot of things, even before. I know we keep bringing up the pandemic because it's still here, but even before that, many of us were already going through quite a few things. And so there's a process of going through the go-through. There's a process of refinement that has to take place in our lives. And you must be tried. You must be tried by the fire. The Bible tells us that the trying or the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Another translation says it produces patience. And I don't know how you've been since you heard the episode last week, or what all you've been having to accept the fact that there is a process to, or accept the fact that you'll have to endure. But that life hack takes a certain level of faith and trust in God, or so I've learned. But understanding the reason for the process is just as important. And so with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce life hack number 2. Life hack number 2 is accepting the place that you're being processed in. So life hack number 1 was accepting the fact that there is a process. Life hack number 2 is accepting the place that you're being processed in. As you know, we can't talk about a journey so much unless we've actually had to endure and go on that journey ourselves. We can talk all we want to about the truths that we believe about the journey and the process, but actually going through it, hearing it for yourselves, experiencing it for yourself, feeling it for yourselves, reading it for yourself, seeing it for yourself, you have so much more to give. You have so much more insight to give, actually being involved in having to interact and having to go through yourself. You're not just, yes, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. But I think that that's not just talking about hearing others' testimonies and being encouraged and motivated, but being able to go through something yourself, and at the end of it, seeing that you made it through, that is a testimony. Have you ever testified to yourself? Anyway, so I like to share with you a few things that have been on my mind since the last episode of Life Hacks. I talk about this all the time about how before I tell you guys or share things with you, I actually have to go through some things myself. But I'm also realizing that I may have gone through something in the past that is just now helping me. And I'm able to share with you. Maybe I forgot about it and it's coming back to me now. And so I'm learning from things that have happened in my past, just as much as I'm learning about new things that I'm going through. But if you've gone through, then you know that most of the time when you're in the process, it's almost always in a place that is fit for the process. The process is rough, and the place that you're in during the process is befitting. It goes along. It's just as rough as the process. It's not the most comfortable place or the most settling place, which makes it very difficult sometimes to do life hack number one. It makes it difficult to accept the fact that there is a process, okay? But accept the place that you're being processed in. Whether it's Elijah at the brook Cherith, in a dry land during a drought, or Esther being taken away from her home to go through a process to becoming the new queen and the savior of her people, or Joseph being sold by his brothers into slavery and taken into Egypt, only to be taken to the palace and becoming the leader over his people, including his brothers. Or the Israelite survivors in exile in Babylon. And I know we've talked about this before, but who are told to pray for the peace and prosperity of the place that they were being held captive in, the place that they were having to be processed and go through. And there's a little bit different because they were in this place as a consequence of their disobedience to God. But they were told to pray for the peace and prosperity of this place that they did not want to be in. A place away from home and everything that they knew, a place that was not familiar to them, an unknown territory, a place that was very uncomfortable that they had been taken captive into. But I'm just naming a few examples from the word. The place you're in, though, is everything. The place that you are in for your process has everything to do with your process. It has everything to do with who you are, who you're becoming, and the plan for your life. So listen, if you are going through right now, if you're in the middle of a storm or a situation, in the middle of your crisis or circumstance, I want you to just do a 360. Just do a 360 and look around you. Look around you and make sure you capture everything. When you do the 360, make sure that you capture, you may have to go a little bit slower than I did, but make sure you capture everything around you, everything that you see, what you hear right now, what you've been smelling right now, what you've been feeling right now. Capture it all. Let it sink in, absorb it, take it in, and reflect on this place. Reflect on this place, because where you are, talking about place, I mean, though it may not seem like the right time, what is the time like right now while you're in this situation? Does it seem like bad timing, and why? I mean, what did you have going on, or what do you have going on that it seems like your process has interrupted you? Is your situation at home or at work, at the hospital, in another state, far from home, far from where you grew up, far from your family, in a place that's not so familiar to you, a place that's not comfortable, an unknown territory that you've been brought to? Were you in a time and a place where it seemed like you were finally starting to get somewhere? You were finally starting to get it. You were finally starting to improve when everything just seemed to come crashing down. Notice that I'm using words like seem. I'm using seem because as I've learned that things may seem one way, but we have yet to see his way. He knows better than us. The place that you're in may be different than what you're used to, but he's still the same God, and he's still with you. And what I've come to find is I'm not used to God yet. I feel like I know enough about him. I have a good relationship with him, but there's so much more that I'm learning about him. And so I can never just get used to him. And I think that that's a good thing, because he's not letting me get comfortable with who he is, even though he is my comfort. when I need him. He's not letting me get comfortable. He's not letting me sit and be like, oh, that's just my man God. He's good. No, he keeps blowing my mind. I think we talked about last week or the week before how he does exceeding and abundantly above all we could ever think, imagine, or fathom. That is him. He's still the same God. He's always going to be like that. He's still with you, and he's trying to take you somewhere. He's trying to take you somewhere. But how we act when he's trying to take us somewhere, it reminds me of witnessing a child, or not just witnessing a child, but being that child where the parent is scolding you and having to tell you, I just can't take you nowhere. You just don't know how to act. You're not going to the store with me. I don't know if you've heard that before being said to you, or if you've actually said it to your child before. I can't take you nowhere. You just don't know how to act. But I feel like sometimes that is how God feels about us, or he's saying that I can't take you anywhere because you don't know how to act. Now look here, I'm trying to get you somewhere. I'm trying to get you to see something. I'm trying to get you to become aware, and I'm trying to make you better. And there's a verse of scripture in the book of Psalms where God says this, like, not word for word, but he says to David, I will stay close to you, instructing and guiding you along the pathway for your life. I will advise you along the way and lead you forth with my eyes as your guide. So don't be difficult and don't be stubborn. When I take you where you've not been before, don't make me tug you and have to pull you along. Just come with me. So I'm telling you, come with them to this place that he has prepared. And speaking of Esther, her uncle Mordecai said to her, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position? Who knows that you've come to this royal place, to this place that you're in for your process for such a time as this? So you have to know and you have to understand the place that you're in before you can truly accept it. There are certain places that have certain restrictions. For example, you may see a sign on a restaurant door at an event that says no outside food or drink allowed. Or you may see those signs that say that you won't be served if you come in without shoes on or without a shirt on. And think about the church. You're not going to sit in the sanctuary and eat McDonald's. You're not going to bring anything into the sanctuary that is going to make it, it's going to cause it to be toxic, or that would make it be any less sacred than what it is. Think about your body. You don't want to put things inside of your body that are going to cause you to be sick or to be ill or to be harmed in any kind of way. You may not allow people to bring certain things or do certain things in your home because that is your sacred place. That's your dwelling place. A lot of us, we make people take their shoes off and leave them by the door before they go any further into our homes. But in this place, the place that you are in, it symbolizes certain things, and those certain things are of a certain importance or a certain value in this place. And so, well, I learned in elementary school that the place is also called the setting of a story. The place is a setting of a story or an event. And instead of setting, we can call this a setup, because God is setting us up for some things, right? He's up to something. But the setting doesn't just include the name of the place. Okay, but what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like, what the weather is like in this place, the climate, the culture, the people around you, the time period or the time zone, the whole atmosphere. Why have you been brought to this place? Taking into consideration all of those things. Why have you been brought to this place? I know for myself that I have felt at times that I have been taken away from a place that is comfortable to me. And I have felt like the more comfortable I was, the better off I was at times. Think about the Israelites when they were freed from slavery in Egypt, and they started to groan and complain in the wilderness because they felt like they were better off in Egypt. Something like that. I know for myself that I have felt at times that I've been taken away from a place that is comfortable to me. And I felt like the more comfortable, the better. Like I was better off. I was good. So why would you take me from being comfortable? And I've learned that sometimes we mistake comfortable for supportive, and they're not the same thing. I have worked in different places, and some I've liked and some not so much for different reasons. I learned real quick that retail is not the career for me. And I've had to leave certain jobs that had more responsibility, even though they paid more. So that level of comfort at a lower level came from me not having to do as much. And I was over there with my people. So once again, I felt like I had more support. And there have been times in situations where I've gone through things and I felt like, okay, well, when I was over here, I had more support. There was more people. My people were over there. And so why would you bring me here where I'm feeling so alone and I'm going through these things and I have no support? But once again, he's our comforter. And so where we want to feel comfortable, we have to learn how to turn to our comforter. And we miss this sometimes. I know I missed it. So the level of comfort at a lower level came from me not wanting to have to do as much, me wanting to be around for what's familiar, and not to be tried and not to be challenged. And given that feeling of support, and now I have to go somewhere once again with more responsibility and more people that I have to learn to get acquainted with and reintroduce myself. And it seems like I'm starting all the way back over when I have to do that. But what I haven't realized is that after I've gone through this process, I am going to be a new person. I am being stretched and being prepared for that new level and for that new place that he's taking me to. The thing about it is just having to accept those changes and having to accept the fact that I got to let some things go, that I have to be delivered from some things. And that place right there is one of the most difficult places to be in. And that place is called transition. Now, I've been doing a lot of talk about having locks. And I've been asked a lot of questions about how it's been growing my hair out with other people that, are interested in doing it. And I can say and I can admit that the most difficult part of this process was the transition. The transition phase is so ugly and it's so hard because your hair is not quite long enough to do anything with it, but it's not quite short enough to just let it go. And I can be honest and admit and say that I wore a wig. At least I tried to wear a wig. I ended up wearing a wig for a couple of days to cover that part up, to cover my transition phase up so that no one would see that part of it. They had seen where I started and they were going to see when my hair was long and it was growing out, but I didn't want anybody to see that ugly face that ugly place I was in called transition. Man, and in real life, spiritually, transition can be an ugly place. We can make it an ugly place. And that place is not often talked about. Okay. And I can tell you that I hate that place. I do. I understand that we need it, but I don't really like it all that much. But in that place is where we begin sometimes to realize what's for us and what's not. And I actually had someone tell me to take that wig off. And if she sees this or hears this airing, she's going to know I'm talking about her. She told me to take that wig off and wear it. Wear my hair, be me, do me, and embrace this transition process, embrace this place. And I did. I embraced it, and I'm thankful that I did. But we learn what's not for us and what we can't carry and what we can't cover up. He will protect what does not need to be seen. He will protect and cover. He will protect and cover what does not need to be seen. We don't have to do that. But we in this place of transition, we know what we shouldn't accept or carry with us. And you may be in this place in your process. You may be in a place of transition, but in order to eliminate certain things that you don't need to be taken with you where you're going. And you'll know this. Sometimes we don't realize this until after the fact. Hindsight is everything, right? You'll know this because when you go back around those things and around those people, you'll have developed a certain immunity or tolerance or intolerance for those things. Things that used to excite you don't excite you anymore. You'll find yourself disinterested in certain things. So think about Esther again. How before her and the other girls were taken and had to go through a process of purification before they even met with the king. Esther was a virgin, right? So as a virgin, she seems pure in our eyes, right? She's already pure. So what more purification could she possibly need? And that's how we are sometimes. We think we're good. I'm good. I got this. But God knows better. So there may be some things that he's called you to this place once again to be delivered from. And you couldn't be there in that comfortable spot and in that familiar spot. And if you were, then you'd never get rid of the things or even be able to see what it is that's on the inside that has to be dealt with or needs to be gotten rid of. Sometimes it's just that we are given instructions and given a word from God, and yet we feel guilty about everything we see and we hear that doesn't seem to line up with what he said or goes against what he said for us to do. And we're in this place and in this season of putting things down, taking our hands off of things and letting things go, and taking our mouths off of things and our mind off of things as well. We're so used to being filled sometimes that we can't receive any more of what he's trying to give us. I hope that makes sense. But we should be praying in this place. God, please increase my capacity. Not only get rid of the things, we talked about praying about getting rid of the toxic and poisonous things that we have received that we don't even know that we have received. But we should be praying in addition to that, God, increase my capacity to receive more of you. And sometimes we feel like we're good because we feel full. And we come from places thinking that we have a wide capacity to receive, but really we just have a cavity that keeps sucking every and anything in. It's a hole made by putting things on the inside of us that we shouldn't be putting inside. We shouldn't be putting there. And it's caused us to begin to rot and decay spiritually. Just had to throw that in there. But let's talk about something remarkable. Let's talk about the place that is housing our process, your crucible place. For me, I have felt like it's been the crucible, and how it has to do with who you are and what you carry. So think about your name, because that's what I'm going to use, because that's what God has been feeding to me. So what does your name mean? Do you know what your name means? At one point, I thought I knew what my name meant because I was looking it up and I couldn't find too much information on it. My name is not of an English origin. It is French, and when I would look up the meaning of it, it would come up without the accent. And so the E in my name has an accent over it. And I've learned that, well, I know, and we all should know, the spelling of a name is everything. It can change the meaning. Like sometimes people that get there and they're confused, the spelling of a name changes the meaning of a name. It is important. The two and twos as well. Your and your, yeah. The names are just like that. But it changed the whole meaning of my name. And so I've just recently been able, like a couple days ago, yesterday, been able to figure out what my name means because I paid attention to that. And so, and the reason why I looked it up was because I saw a post that my friend had shared on social media, and the post was saying to, in the comment section, introduce yourself as what your name means. And so you say, hi, I'm, and then whatever your name means. And so I thanked her for sharing the post, but I didn't tell her this. I didn't tell her that that was my first time realizing what my name actually means. My name is different. My name is Travé Nicole, right? Nicole's my middle name. Travé is my first name. My name is different. And it's not like, once again, I had never tried to look it up, but it was so astonishing to me. It's so surprising what it actually means. I'm not going to use technology as an excuse and say that it's come a long way. It has come a long way, and I thank God for it. We thank God. But instead of using Google like I normally have, I used Google Translate. Go figure, to figure out what my name meant. And y'all, sometimes things that seem so difficult to us in the past, at one point, they just all of a sudden seem so simple. And we know exactly what to do to get the answers that we need, right? Sometimes it takes maturity and growth to get there. Sometimes we're blinded from certain things that we may not need to know at that time. And it's revealed to us at the right time. So I'm going to use that. I wanted to participate in her post. And so I'll say that the last few days, God has really been highlighting my name to me because it's been said wrong so many times here recently in the last couple of weeks. Like, people have just been tearing it up. They just been tearing my name up. And it used to bother me so much, like to the point that I would get in trouble for correcting people. I would get in trouble. I would get in arguments with people who were trying to tell me how to say my name. But we thank God that I've been delivered and I can be nice about it now. And it doesn't bother me as much. But I think that God was trying to get me to understand that it is important to correct people, to tell people how to say my name. It's important to own your name, even when it seems like it doesn't matter. I mean, to the point where I can admit that when I go and order food, I would use my middle name because I know it's easy to pronounce and it's easy to spell. Nicole. It's easy to pronounce, it's easy to spell. But I am going to stop doing that because I have learned. So thinking about your name and what your name means, right? Y'all. So I use Google Translate, like I said. So for such a time as this, right? For such a time as this, I finally know. I've learned, I have confirmation of what my name means. And I say confirmation because I feel like God has thrown hints to me and the Holy Spirit has dropped some clues in my spirit as to what it means. And I know without a shadow of doubt now, I know. It means, in French and in German, these two sentences. It means, Travé means I have worked, I have went through. Y'all, it means I have travailed. And I know travail is so close to travail, so I should have known, right? Okay, but I have worked, I have went through. And it means so much to me. It's so liberating to apply who I am to the process that I've been in and to the place that I'm in, because I can look back on the process that I have gone through and I can reflect on what I've gone through so far. Even though I may still be in the process, I still may be in the middle of my testimony, in the middle of my story. But a year later, I can look back and see, hey, have I made it through? Have I went through? Have I worked? Have I travailed? At the end of the test, I can say that once again. Have I worked? Have I went through? Have I travailed? Have I lived up to what my name means? Have I lived up to what my name means? In the Bible, there are several instances where a person's name was changed after they have gone through a process or an event or a battle. And even sometimes the name of a place was either changed or a place that had actually received a name after an event had happened or someone had gone through something and they decided to name that place. We know Jacob had taken his brother's birthright in the Bible and he fled. And after some time, God instructed him to go back home. And he was fearful of his brother Esau because of what he had done. Right? In Genesis 32. I'll just read to you what it says. It says, so Jacob was left alone. This is before he went back. He was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, let me go, for it is daybreak. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go until you bless me. The man asked him, what is your name? Jacob, he answered. Then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. Because you have struggled, you've gone through your process. You have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. So in addition to this, I'm going to keep reading. Jacob said, please tell me your name. But he replied, why do you ask my name? Then he blessed them there. So Jacob called the place Peniel. Don't know if I pronounced that right. Peniel. Saying, it is because I saw God face to face and yet my life was spared. I made it through my process. I made it through this struggle. Your name, and the place that we have to be planted in this season, in this process, when it comes to plants and their names. Listen, so this is something in addition to what I've already said. This is something that I've learned. So plants and their names. You know, they have those scientific names that has to do with the species of plant that it is, and animals have this too, but I'm focused on plants right now. Certain species of plants can only grow in certain places. They can only grow in certain places. They need the right amount of light, the right amount of rain, the right amount of shade, or else they will die. How can a cactus survive in the desert? That specific species of plant is built for that place. The name tells you where it can grow, what exactly it needs. What type of plant is this? What type of person are you? Okay. I remember first moving into our home and trying to find plants that at first I had always wanted certain plants, and I'd always wanted palm trees in our front yard. When I just knew when I get a house, I want palm trees. So as I was looking in the store, not only was I looking for that, but I was looking for what looks just pretty, what looks the most beautiful that I can put in our front yard. But what I learned was there's certain plants that need certain things. They have to be in a certain place to be able to grow, to thrive, to survive. And I couldn't just choose whatever plant looked beautiful to me, because at my house, the way that my house is structured, the way that it was built, there is a wall, and on the other side of that wall is where my our walkway is, where there is soil on both sides for us to plant plants, bushes, things like that. But because that wall is right there, it never gets sunlight. So I could not just go off of how a plant looks. I had to go off of the name of the plant, what it needs in order to survive, to thrive, to grow, right? And so once again, you were called to this place for such a time as this, and you were built for this place. What does your name mean? All right. I realized, and I shared with someone the other day, that sometimes we get to a place where we can look back on the process, on what we just come through, and it feels like making it across a hanging bridge. I don't know if you've ever walked across a hanging bridge before. I'm using so many examples today. I don't know if you ever walked across a hanging bridge before, but I have, and I was scared for my life. I was scared for my life. And most of the times in movies, when we see hanging bridges, we see the little wooden pieces that look very much like you should not put even your big toe on it, or it will fall to whatever is, like, it looks, nothing is down there, whether it's rushing water down there or just rocks that you could fall and die on. But either way, you going across this hanging bridge is so scary. And the one I went across did not have the little wooden planks like that. It was very much secure, but it still moved. It moved, and that was that was the scariest part to me. But it's like making it across this bridge. The process is sometimes, for me anyway, in my opinion. And you can look back and see that either, man, that wasn't so bad, or man, I'm glad that I made it alive. And most of the time what we do is feel like, man, I barely made it. But look, that is so not true. You didn't barely make it. You were always going to make it through the process, because he has a plan. And so he has made it his duty as God, your Father, your provider, your comfort, your shelter, to make sure you make it through this process. Before he takes you through the process, he's already made provisions. He has a plan for us. We learned that once again in Jeremiah 29. He has a plan. He has a plan. And so he's not going to let you fail. He's not. His plan right now is that you be in this place, going through this process for this purpose, a reason, and he's got you. He's got you. So the countless nights that you've cried tears of disappointment and distress, when you were so tired that you couldn't sleep, definitely have been there. Times when you carried the weight of the world on your shoulders, put it down. Give it to him. He's got it. Cast your cares on me. Okay? He's got you. In this place, it's tight, but it's right. It's uncomfortable, but it's right. And it won't last forever. But trust his timing. talking about Jacob again. So we know that Jacob was at his uncle Laban's, right? And he agreed to work for 7 years so that he could marry Laban's youngest daughter, Rachel. And what ended up happening with Laban gave him Leah instead of Rachel. And so Jacob agreed to work another 7 years in order to get Rachel as his wife. And when we think about God's timing, was it just so much just the fact that Jacob wanted Rachel so bad and so he worked for so long? Was it just that, or why do you think it took so long? Why do you think his time had to be extended? Why did he have to work for so long? How could that time period, yes, he was physically cultivating while he was working, but how could he have been being cultivated during that 14 years? How did it save him from whatever could have come his way before he went back to Esau? Why was this amount of time needed before he went back? Were there things that Jacob still needed to learn? Was Esau going through his own process of forgiveness before it was time for God to instruct Jacob to go back to the place that he had come from, the place where he messed up? His plan, his timing, and his will. We have to trust it. We have to trust it. We have to accept the fact that there's a process. We have to accept the place that we're being processed in. This has been another episode of Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed radio show. I pray for you, that those of you who are listening and watching, that something that was said on today's show really helped you, that it blessed you, that it encouraged you, that it motivated you in some kind of way. I'm praying for you as you're going through your process, and I hope that you're praying for me as well. We have each other's back, and God has got us. God has got our back. As always, until next time, I want you guys to be patient in affliction, be persistent in prayer, and always remember, never forget it, that closed mouths do not get